Tonight, the murder of Adelaide Crows coach Phil Walsh.
He was part of the AFL family for 32 years. And there are not many words of comfort today.
The 55-year-old stabbed to death in his own home. Now his son has been charged with murder.
The tragedy plunging a stunned football world into mourning, leaving family, friends and fans grief-stricken.
Bit shattered, mate. Yeah, shattered. So, love the footy club and everyone involved down here and that.
The murder also prompting the unprecedented cancellation of Sunday's Crows-Cats clash.
This is 10 Eyewitness News, first at 5, with Stephen Quartermain and Candice Wyatt.
Good evening. Our sports-loving nation has been left stunned and horrified by the murder of Adelaide Crows coach Phil Walsh.
The first-year senior coach was attacked and stabbed to death early today. His son to face charges.
It has prompted an outpouring of grief, with the AFL family doing all it can for his loved ones, the club and supporters.
Adam Hegarty joins us from the scene. And Adam, even those who didn't know Phil Walsh personally are grieving tonight.
Candice, absolutely. Of course, we've been here since early this morning and there has been a steady stream of football fans and general public paying their respects to Phil Walsh at the murder scene. One woman was in tears as she remembered the man and left flowers here. As for police, they've been spending most of the afternoon scouring the area for evidence. They've been searching a car inside the family home's driveway, as well as pulling countless amounts of evidence from the home itself. But you could only imagine the scene that would have confronted detectives at 2 o'clock this morning.
The life of Crows coach Phil Walsh was cut short after a violent confrontation erupted when his son Si arrived home in the early hours of this morning.
The son of the family had attended. There'd been an argument. I can't tell you anything about the argument or the circumstances of that, but as a result of that, both Mr Walsh and his wife received the wounds.
With Phil Walsh fatally wounded, his injured wife Meredith called for help.
Ambulance crews immediately rendered first aid and tried to resuscitate Mr Walsh, but unfortunately a doctor declared that he had died shortly afterwards.
His shocked wife was taken to hospital with knife wounds to her leg. Police caught up with 26-year-old Si Walsh a short time later at a friend's house at nearby Glenelg East. As first-season coach of the Adelaide Crows and a former assistant at the city's other AFL team Port, Phil Walsh is one of the best-known and most respected people in his adopted hometown. Neighbours often saw his wife Meredith out walking her dog.
We had no idea. Everyone was saying, what's going on in your street? What's going on in your street?
He's such a vibrant man. And I just feel sorry for his wife.
Grief-stricken football fans paying their respects at the scene.
I don't know what it does, but it gives me some sort of sense of help.
He was a good coach. Liked him a lot.
Si Walsh was assessed in hospital and later charged with his father's murder.
For any family, regardless of who it is one of the worst things that you could imagine that could happen to you. The only thing that's different with this is that he has a high profile. The pain and suffering of the family is no different.
Now, Candice, Si Walsh was due to have a bedside court hearing this afternoon, but he was sedated, so instead a lawyer appeared in court on his behalf. He didn't seek bail. As for the Adelaide Football Club players, well, they've made it very clear this afternoon that football really does take a back seat now, and at least for the time being, and Adelaide Football Club officials have described today, as you'd expect, as an unprecedented crisis.
Terrible tragedy. Thank you to Adam Hegarty there.
In the wake of the tragic death, the AFL community has come together to mourn and pay tribute to one of its own. A talented player and a consummate professional, Phil Walsh lived and breathed football, and the game is poorer for losing him. Rob Waters has more.
Phil Walsh was memorable for his intensity, his almost fanatical approach to coaching football.
It's a fantastic job. It's really energised me. I love the job, but it just consumes you.
He spent 20 years as a backroom tactician before taking the plunge with the senior job at Adelaide.
Once I walk in the door of those clubs, I'm 100% committed to that club, okay? The other 17 clubs are the enemy, and that's how I see it.
In just 12 games in charge, one of the least known coaches became one of the most interesting.
When I was in Amsterdam, I did go to Van Gogh's museum. There's a man with great frustration, and I looked at that painting, Sunflower, and for a bogan from Hamilton like myself, I could actually see beauty in that frustration.
The AFL community was today in a state of shock. Adelaide players and staff left numb by the sudden tragedy. The Crows' home becoming a memorial as people paid their respects.
You know, you've got to get straight into crisis management, and this is a crisis unprecedented. There's no rule book, and we're dealing with it.
Our game is in mourning today, and I speak for the whole of the AFL, our clubs, our players and our staff in passing our deepest sympathies to Phil Walsh's family and friends.
Crosstown rivals Port Adelaide, where he spent 10 years as an assistant in 2 stints, also paid tribute. Walsh was a country kid from Hamilton who made the move to the Big Smoke in Collingwood in 1983 and starred in his first and only season with the Magpies.
He looked quick. I don't know whether he was super quick, but he was a left footer. And yeah, he did play on the wing, carried the ball, courageous, never doubt the courage. And as I said, a great competitor. He didn't want to lose in anything.
Collingwood and Richmond were in a trading war, and Walsh was bought by the Tigers as payback for the Magpies stealing David Cloke, Jeff Rains and Brian Taylor. The journeyman headed north to Brisbane to start up with the Bears and won the club's first best and fairest.
Yeah, it's just a shocking thing for family, as much as anyone. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I was quite stunned actually.
It was coaching where he made his mark. He got his break as a fitness specialist at Geelong, then headed to Port Adelaide, where he was a key part of the 2004 Premiership, the year he was named assistant coach of the season. In 2009, he made the difficult decision to leave his family home in Adelaide and coach at West Coast under John Worsfold. He worked incredibly hard, and the Crows hierarchy a few weeks ago asked him to pull back. Sunday's match between Adelaide and Geelong has been cancelled.
We're strongly of the view that it is not fair to ask the young men at the Adelaide Crows or the Geelong Cats to play in these circumstances. This decision has the support of the clubs and of the Players Association.
Both Adelaide and Geelong will receive 2 points each. All other matches will proceed as normal. Walsh won 7 of his 12 games in charge and had the Crows on track for finals in his first year.
This is Formula One footy. If you want to drive safe, you're going to finish last.
Phil Walsh was 55.
Rob Waters joins us from the MCG, where Hawthorn plays Collingwood tonight. Rob, what's the mood there?
Well, good evening, Steve. It's sombre, as you'd expect. There's really a sense of astonishment that this has happened to such a senior and experienced figure in the AFL, and the circumstances surrounding his death only add to the sense of disbelief. As we know, the Adelaide-Geelong match has been postponed. The AFL did consider postponing all other matches of this round, but have decided to plough on. So it's Hawthorn and Collingwood tonight. As a mark of respect, the players from both clubs will wear black armbands. There'll be a minute's silence pre-game, and neither club's players will run through their banners tonight. There can be no joy after what has occurred in Adelaide today. Phil Walsh came from Hamilton, a small farming community in Western Victoria. He started his football journey with the Hamilton Magpies, and Prime Minister Tony Abbott, coincidentally, happened to be visiting Hamilton today, and this is what he had to say about the untimely passing of Philip Walsh.
There is a pall over Hamilton, there's a pall over AFL more generally today, and like Dan, I certainly would want to extend my deepest condolences to his family, to his friends, to his colleagues, and perhaps I might just pause for a moment or two of silence.
Nothing like this has ever really happened in AFL football. It's an incredibly strange day, Stephen, but tonight, as we know, the show goes on.
Thank you, Rob. Rob Waters at the MCG.
To the day's other news, and it would seem an almost impossible task developing a plan to free Australia from the grip of the drug ice. But
Good evening. Sunday's match between Adelaide and Geelong has been cancelled following the death of Crows coach Phil Walsh. While the remaining round 14 games will go ahead, the AFL has announced, after consultation with all 18 clubs, the Crows and Cats will be awarded 2 points each. A sport that brings so much pleasure is dealing with unbearable pain.
Our game is in mourning today, and I speak for the whole of the AFL, our clubs, our players and our staff in passing our deepest sympathies to Phil Walsh's family and friends.
Today, frankly, has been all about and is going to be all about wrapping our arms around the Adelaide Football Club community.
With heads bowed, Crows players trickled into the club this morning. Playing on Sunday was suddenly the last thing on their minds. They've been given time to grieve.
We have decided that the game on Sunday between Adelaide and Geelong will not go ahead. This is a decision of the competition as a remark of respect to Phil Walsh.
For the AFL to cancel the game on Sunday at a time where players, just clearly wouldn't be up for that game, I think is very, it's the right move and commendable, and we congratulate Gil McLaughlin and the AFL for doing so.
Phil Walsh was a football journeyman. He went far and wide, showing off his wonderful skills, enormous courage and footy smarts. He looked quick. I don't know whether he was super quick, but he's a left footer. He did play on the wing, carried the ball. Courageous, never doubt the courage. He was a fan favourite at the Magpies before proving just as popular down the road at Richmond. One of the key signings for the fledgling Brisbane Bears, he won their inaugural Best and Fairest award.
I suppose for people who played with each other for 3 years, we had a reasonable relationship without a close relationship. It's a big shock.
A fitness fanatic, Walsh made arguably his greatest contribution to the game once retired, nurturing countless players during stints at Geelong, Port Adelaide and West Coast. He finally earned a senior coaching job. It's over after just 12 games.
He was famous within the game for his football nous and insight, and he was extremely committed to his players.
We're told Walsh was equal parts intense and humorous. Only recently, he made us smile when describing the Crows' form.
When I was in Amsterdam, I did go to Van Gogh's museum. There's a man with great frustration, and I looked at that painting, Sunflower, and for a bogan from Hamilton like myself, I could actually see beauty in that frustration.
He thought outside the square. He seemed to care for everyone. Football will go on. But right now, it pauses to shed a tear for a really good man. Well, it's sure to be an emotion-charged night at the MCG when Phil Walsh's first AFL club, Collingwood, takes on Hawthorn. Rob Waters is there. Rob, both teams are going to honour Walsh this evening.
Yes, they are. Good evening, Brad. Yes, both Collingwood and Hawthorn players will wear black armbands. There'll be a minute's silence before the start of the game, and none of the players from either club will be running through the banner. Scott Burns, the Collingwood assistant coach, has joined us tonight. And Scott, it's poignant for you. You spent 5 years with Phil as an assistant at West Coast. Sorry about the day, and thanks for joining us.
No, it's not a good day to wake up to. Tragic day for everyone involved, and it's not just West Coast or myself. When you've been involved in the industry for 30 plus years as a player at 3 clubs and assistant coach or fitness coach at 4, there's a lot of people doing it pretty rough today.
And he was an incredibly interesting guy from all accounts, intense and passionate.
Yeah, but he had a really good balance with care too, and you'll see that come out, I would say, over the next week or so when you hear the eulogies and people talk about him. He definitely demanded. He set high standards, but he had a fair bit of care too for the individuals that he coached.
And how have you handled it as a club? Have you spoken to the players, or will you do that before tonight's game?
Yeah, I'm sure Bucks has got something that he'll say to the boys. Look, we had the day off, of course. We just come in tonight. The players are getting here now, so everyone's different as an individual. They'll handle it differently. Some will think of something that's probably happened to them in their life, and I'm sure it's one of the great things of AFL, but even sport in Australia, I think, when anything happens to a player or a coach, we all gel together.
Yeah, footy clubs are very good at that. The show must go on tonight, and you've gone very young again. Moore and Maynard get their first crack at it.
Yeah, look, Braden's been fantastic. He's really developed nicely throughout the pre-season, and the last, I think he's been emergency nearly the last 6 games, so he certainly deserves the opportunity. Left foot, half back, beautiful kick, really strong size and strong body, so we're looking forward to him having a crack. And Darcy can be a bit of an excitement